You've been lied to your entire life. They told you being nice gets you respect. They told you being open makes people trust you. They told you if you just explain yourself clearly enough, people will understand. And where has that gotten you? Walked over, ignored, taken for granted, disrespected by the very people you've been nothing but good to. You know what's funny? You probably think it's your fault. You think maybe you're not nice enough, not clear enough, not good enough. But that's not the problem. The problem is you've been playing by rules that were designed to keep you weak. Rules that were designed to make you controllable. Rules that turn you into someone people use, not someone people respect. And I'm about to shatter those rules completely. See, there's a type of person who moves through this world differently. They don't explain themselves. They don't justify their actions. They don't seek approval or beg for understanding. They don't even speak most of the time. Yet somehow, everyone adjusts their behavior around them. Everyone watches their words. Everyone thinks twice before crossing them. Why? Because these people understand something you're about to learn. Something Machiavelli knew 5 centuries ago. Something that separates the powerful from the powerless. The world doesn't respect goodness. It respects mystery. It doesn't bow to kindness. It bows to psychological control. You want to know why that person who barely speaks gets more respect than you, who explains everything. You want to know why the quiet ones are feared, while the loud ones are ignored. You want to know why your transparency makes you weak, while their silence makes them untouchable. Stay with me. Because what you're about to discover will change how you see power forever. This isn't about being mean. This isn't about being cruel. This is about understanding the dark psychology of respect. This is about learning to weaponize silence, mystery, and strategic unpredictability. This is about becoming someone people fear to lose. Someone people move carefully around. Someone people never ever take for granted. You ready? Because there's no going back after this. I want you to drop this affirmation in the comments. Silence is my weapon. Number 1. Why people underestimate and disrespect you. Let me ask you something, and be honest with yourself. When someone disrespects you, what do? You explain how you feel, right? You tell them why what they did bothered you. You try to make them understand your perspective. You open up about your emotions, hoping they'll finally see you differently. And what happens? They do it again. Maybe they apologize first. Maybe they act like they get it. But then, same behavior, same disrespect, same pattern. You know why? Because every time you explain yourself emotionally, you're handing them a weapon. You're showing them exactly where to cut you. You're giving them a map of your vulnerabilities. And they use it. Not because they're evil, but because humans are predators. We exploit weakness instinctively. It's in our nature. You think you're being mature by expressing your feelings. You think you're being authentic by showing vulnerability. You think you're being reasonable by explaining your position. But here's the brutal truth you need to accept. Your emotional transparency is killing your power. Every time you show someone how their words affect you, you teach them how to control you. Every time you defend yourself, you prove you're defensive. Every time you explain your decisions, you signal that you're seeking validation. And people who seek validation get none. People who show all their cards get played. People who are emotionally predictable get exploited. This is the game you didn't know you were playing. And you've been losing because you've been playing with honor in a world that rewards cunning. Look around you. Who gets respect? Is it the person who's always available, always explaining, always trying to make everyone comfortable? Not. That person gets used. That person becomes the emotional dumping ground. That person becomes the backup plan. The respect goes to the person who's distant, unreadable, slightly cold. The person who doesn't explain their absences, who doesn't justify their decisions, who doesn't react emotionally when provoked. Why? Because predictability breeds contempt. When people know exactly how you'll react, they lose respect for you. You become a solved puzzle, boring, manageable, controllable. But when you're unreadable, when your emotions are hidden behind calm eyes and measured words, when people can't predict whether you'll forgive them or erase them from your life, that's when they start moving carefully. That's when they start showing respect. Not because they like you more, but because they fear the unknown. They fear what they can't predict. They fear consequences they can't anticipate. And that fear is respect. You see, you've been taught that being liked and being respected are the same thing. They're not. You can be the nicest person in the room and have zero power. People might enjoy your company, but they won't think twice about canceling on you, lying to you, or using you when it's convenient. Because there are no consequences. You've trained them that you're safe to disrespect. You've shown them through your reactions, your forgiveness, your constant explanations that crossing you costs nothing. And humans, being the calculating creatures we are, will always take the path of least resistance. If disrespecting you has no real cost, why wouldn't they? This is what Machiavelli understood that most people refuse to accept. Human nature is not noble. It's strategic. People don't treat you based on what you deserve. They treat you based on what you've trained them they can get away with. Machiavelli once said, "Men judge generally more by the eye than by the hand, for everyone can see, but few can feel." What does that mean for you? It means people judge you by what they perceive, not by what's real. And right now, they perceive weakness. Not because you are weak, but because you're too visible, too readable, too accessible. You've given them too much information, too much emotional access, too much predictability. And now they've categorized you as someone who can be managed, someone who can be controlled through emotional manipulation, someone who will always explain themselves if pushed hard enough. That categorization is your prison, and the only way out is to become unreadable. You need to stop showing people your internal world. Stop explaining your motivations. Stop defending your choices. Stop reacting emotionally to provocations. Start existing as a closed system. Start being someone whose thoughts remain hidden, whose emotions stay controlled, whose reactions are impossible to predict. Let them wonder what you're thinking. Let them guess why you made that decision. Let them fear that they've crossed a line they didn't know existed. That wondering, that guessing, that fear, that's the beginning of respect. You're not being mean. You're not being cruel. You're just being strategically unavailable, emotionally controlled, psychologically dominant. You're becoming someone who doesn't need to prove anything because you've stopped caring whether people understand you. You're becoming someone who doesn't need to explain anything because you've realized that seeking validation is weakness. You're becoming untouchable, and untouchable people get respected, always. So ask yourself, do you want to keep being the person everyone feels comfortable disrespecting? The person whose boundaries are suggestions, the person who explains themselves into weakness? Or do you want to become the person people are careful around? The person whose silence creates tension? The person who commands respect through sheer psychological presence? The choice is yours. But understand this: the moment you choose power, you give up being understood. You give up being seen as nice. You give up the comfort of being emotionally transparent. But you gain something far more valuable. You gain control. You gain respect. You gain the ability to move through this world as a force, not a victim. Drop this affirmation in the comments. I am unreadable. Number 2. The power of silence and unreadability. Silence is not passive. Silence is not weak. Silence is not you letting them win. Silence is the most aggressive form of psychological warfare that exists. When someone attacks you and you say nothing, they panic. When someone tries to provoke you and you just stare through them with dead calm eyes, they break. When someone expects you to defend yourself and you don't, their entire strategy collapses. Because they were prepared for your words. They were ready for your emotions. They had responses lined up for whatever you might say. But your silence, they have nothing for that. Silence creates a void. And humans, being the anxious creatures we are, will fill that void with our own fears, doubts, and paranoia. They start wondering, why aren't they reacting? What are they thinking? Are they angrier than I thought? Are they done with me? Are they planning something? And the longer you stay silent, the worse it gets for them. Their imagination runs wild. They start projecting their own guilt onto your calm face. They start seeing threats that don't exist. They start creating consequences in their mind that are far worse than anything you could actually say. That's the power of silence. You're not doing anything, but in their head, you're doing everything. You become this looming presence, this psychological weight they can't shake, this person they can't read, can't predict, can't control, and that terrifies them on a primal level. Think about every interaction you've had where you over-explained yourself, where you filled the silence with justifications and defenses and emotional explanations. What did that accomplish? Did people suddenly respect you more? Did they suddenly understand and change their behavior? Not. They filed you away as someone who cracks under pressure, someone who needs validation, someone who can be manipulated through emotional provocation. Now imagine a different scenario. Someone says something disrespectful to you, and you just look at them, calm, still, silent, not angry, not upset, just observing them like you're studying an insect under glass. 5 seconds pass, 10 seconds, 15. They start fidgeting. They start talking more, trying to fill the silence, trying to gauge your reaction. Their voice gets uncertain. Their confidence wavers. And you? You still haven't said a word. You just keep watching them with those unreadable eyes. Who has the power in that moment? Who's in control? Not the person talking, not the person explaining. The person who's comfortable with silence. The person who doesn't need to react. The person who's watching everything while revealing nothing. That's you. That's what you're becoming. Machiavelli once said, "Everyone sees what you appear to be. Few experience what you really are." This is the key to psychological dominance. Control what people see. Never let them experience what you really are. Keep your internal world completely separate from your external presentation. Show them calm. Show them control. Show them silence. But never show them your actual thoughts, your actual emotions, your actual vulnerabilities. Become a mask. Become a surface they can't penetrate. Become someone whose depths remain forever mysterious. And here's what happens when you master this. People start projecting power onto you that you might not even have. They start assuming you're more dangerous, more calculated, more ruthless than you actually are. Because humans fear the unknown. We're wired to, and when we can't read someone, we assume the worst. We assume they're capable of anything. We assume they're thinking 10 steps ahead. We assume crossing them would be a terrible mistake, and they treat you accordingly. With caution, with respect, with fear. All because you said nothing, but there's a critical distinction you need to understand. There's silence that comes from fear and silence that comes from power. People can tell the difference. When you're silent because you're afraid to speak, your body betrays you. You avoid eye contact. You shrink. You look uncomfortable. That's weak silence. That's hiding. But when you're silent because you choose to be, because you're comfortable with tension, because you're observing and calculating rather than reacting, your body shows confidence. You maintain eye contact. You stay still and centered. You look like you're in complete control. That's powerful silence. That's dominance, and people feel it. They might not consciously understand what they're feeling, but instinctively, they know they're in the presence of someone who operates on a different level, someone who doesn't need words to prove their point, someone who doesn't need validation to feel secure, someone who's comfortable being misunderstood because they've realized that being understood is overrated. You need to become that person. You need to practice being comfortable in silence, in tension, in moments where everyone expects you to speak and you choose not to. Let people squirm. Let them fill the void with their nervous chatter. Let them expose themselves while you remain hidden. Because every word they speak while you stay silent is information. Information about their fears, their insecurities, their strategies, their weaknesses, and you're gathering all of it, processing all of it, using all of it, while giving them absolutely nothing in return. That's how you stay 10 steps ahead. That's how you maintain control. That's how you command respect without ever demanding it. Through silence, through mystery, through being the one person in the room who doesn't feel the need to fill the air with words. Be that person. Be the silence that makes others uncomfortable. Be the presence that shifts the energy without speaking. Be untouchable. I want you to drop this affirmation in the comments. My silence speaks volumes. Number 3. The danger of over-explaining. You know what the weakest thing you can do is? Defend yourself to someone who doesn't respect you, because here's what happens. Someone questions your decision, challenges your choice, doubts your judgment, and immediately you feel that urge, that need to explain, to justify, to make them understand why you did what you did. And you think you're being reasonable, you think you're being mature, you think you're showing them you're someone who can communicate. But what you're actually doing is begging for their approval. You're telling them that their opinion matters so much to you that you need to justify yourself. You're showing them that you're insecure about your own decisions, and they smell that insecurity like blood in water. Now they know they can challenge you. They know if they just push hard enough, question long enough, you'll eventually fold. You'll change your decision, or at least doubt yourself. Because you've shown them you need external validation to feel confident. That's weakness, that's surrender, that's giving away every ounce of power you had. Listen, powerful people don't explain themselves. They don't defend their choices. They don't justify their actions to people who haven't earned that level of access. They simply decide, and then they let their decision exist. Final, unquestionable, non-negotiable. When you stop explaining yourself, something interesting happens. People stop questioning you, because there's nothing to argue against, no weak points to attack, no insecurity to exploit. You've just decided, and that's the end of the discussion. They can accept it or not, but you're not giving them anything to work with. No emotional leverage, no opening for manipulation. That's authority, that's power. That's respect. Think about the last time someone questioned you. Maybe they asked why you made a certain choice, why you said no to something, why you changed your mind about something, and you probably launched into this whole explanation, listed your reasons, defended your logic, tried to make them see it from your perspective, maybe even apologized for your decision. And what did that accomplish? Did they suddenly respect your choice? Did they back off and leave you alone? Or did they push harder, challenge more, make you doubt yourself even more? You know the answer. The more you explained, the weaker your position became. Now imagine you had just said, "I've decided," and then stayed silent. Or, "This is what I'm doing," without any justification. Or even just "not," without any explanation. What could they say? What could they argue against? Nothing. There's no opening, no weakness to exploit. You've stated your position and that's the end of it. They're forced to accept it. And in that acceptance, respect is born. Machiavelli once said, "The lion cannot protect himself from traps, and the fox cannot defend himself from wolves. One must therefore be a fox to recognize traps, and a lion to frighten wolves." Be smart enough to recognize when someone's trying to trap you with questions, and be strong enough to refuse to engage. Don't fall into the trap of defending yourself. That's what they want. They want you emotional. They want you explaining. They want you vulnerable. Be the lion. Don't explain. Don't justify. Just be. Here's what most people don't understand. When you explain yourself, you're not clarifying anything. You're showing doubt. You're showing that you're not fully confident in your own decisions. You're showing that you need someone else to validate your choices. And people who need validation get none. It's a paradox, but it's true. The more you seek approval, the less you receive it. The more you explain yourself, the less people respect your explanations. But when you stop seeking approval, when you stop explaining, when you just exist as someone who makes decisions and moves forward without needing anyone's blessing, that's when people start respecting you. That's when they start treating your decisions as final. That's when they stop questioning your authority. Because you've demonstrated something rare. You've demonstrated self-assurance, self-trust, self-validation. You don't need their approval because you've already approved of yourself. And that level of confidence is magnetic. It's powerful. It's commanding. So from now on, when someone questions you, resist the urge to explain. Resist the urge to defend. Resist the urge to make them understand. Just state your position once, calmly, clearly, without emotion, and then be done with it. If they keep pushing, stay silent, or repeat yourself once more without elaboration. But never, ever launch into a defensive explanation, because the moment you defend yourself, you've lost. The moment you explain, you've shown weakness. The moment you seek their understanding, you've given them power over you. Stop giving away your power. Stop seeking validation from people who aren't even on your level. Stop explaining yourself to people who don't have the capacity to understand you anyway. Just decide. Just act. Just move forward. Let your actions speak. Let your silence speak. Let your calm, controlled presence speak. And watch how quickly people stop questioning you. How quickly they start treating your decisions as law. How quickly they start respecting your authority. Because you've shown them something they rarely see. Someone who doesn't need approval. Someone who doesn't need understanding. Someone who's comfortable being misunderstood and doesn't care. That's power. That's control. That's respect. Now, I want you to drop this affirmation in the comments. I owe no explanations. Number 4. Strategic unpredictability. Here's where most people fail. Even when they understand everything I've told you so far, they become consistently cold, consistently distant, consistently unreadable, and they think that's power. It's not. That's just being one-dimensional. And one-dimensional people are still predictable. They're just predictably cold instead of predictably warm. True power lies in unpredictability, in being impossible to categorize, in keeping people permanently off balance because they never know which version of you they're going to get. Sometimes you're warm, engaging, present. You give people access. You show interest. You make them feel valued. They relax. They think they've figured you out. They think they're special. They think they have your trust. And then, without warning, without explanation, you go cold, distant, unreachable. The same behavior that got warmth yesterday gets ice today. The same words that made you smile last week make you cut someone off this week. They're confused. What changed? What did I do? Why are they different now? And you give them nothing, no explanation, no pattern they can recognize, no logic they can follow. That confusion is power. That uncertainty is control. That unpredictability is respect. Because now they can't relax around you. They can't take you for granted. They can't assume they know how you'll react. Every interaction with you requires their full attention. Every word they speak around you is chosen carefully. They're walking on eggshells, and they don't even know where the eggshells are. This is strategic unpredictability. You're not being random. You're not being unstable. You're being deliberately inconsistent in your emotional responses while remaining completely consistent in your standards and values. People never know if today is a day you'll tolerate something or a day you'll cut them off forever for the same thing. They never know if you'll forgive quickly or hold a grudge for months. They never know if you'll be warm and engaging or cold and distant. And that keeps them alert, keeps them careful, keeps them respectful. Machiavelli once said, "Whosoever desires constant success must change his conduct with the times." But take that deeper. Change your conduct, not just with times, but with moments. Be fluid, be adaptable, be unpredictable. Never let anyone feel like they've figured you out completely. The moment someone thinks they understand you, you've lost power over them. The moment they can predict your reactions, they can manipulate you. The moment they know your patterns, they can work around you. Stay unknown, stay mysterious, stay strategically unpredictable. Now here's the sophisticated part. Your unpredictability should seem natural, not forced. You're not randomly switching emotions for no reason. You're responding differently based on factors only you understand. Factors you never explain. Factors that seem arbitrary to everyone else, but make perfect sense to you. Maybe you tolerate disrespect when you're testing someone's overall value. But once you've decided they're not worth it, the exact same disrespect gets them cut off permanently. To them, it seems random. To you, it's strategic. Maybe you're warm with someone when they're respecting your boundaries, but the moment they get comfortable and start taking liberties, you go ice cold. To them, it seems like your mood changed. To you, it's a calculated response to their behavior. You're always operating with logic, with strategy, with purpose. But you never reveal that logic. You never explain that strategy. You never share that purpose. So to everyone else, you seem unpredictable, mysterious, impossible to understand, and that makes you powerful. Combine this with silence, and it becomes devastating. You're not only unpredictable in your reactions, but you're also unwilling to explain those reactions. People are left completely in the dark, trying to figure out what they did wrong, what changed, what invisible line they crossed. And while they're obsessing over you, trying to decode you, trying to get back into your good graces, you're completely unbothered. You've already moved on mentally. You're already focused on other things. That's psychological dominance. That's how you live in people's heads rent-free. That's how you maintain control without effort. So stop being so consistent in your emotional availability. Stop being so predictable in your responses. Start varying your reactions. Start being impossible to read. Start being someone people can never quite figure out. Sometimes be generous with your time. Sometimes be completely unavailable. Sometimes forgive immediately. Sometimes hold grudges forever. Sometimes engage deeply. Sometimes barely acknowledge people exist. And never, ever explain why. Never let them see the method behind your choices. Never give them the pattern they're desperately looking for. Keep them guessing. Keep them wondering. Keep them careful. That's how you command respect. That's how you maintain power. That's how you become unforgettable. Drop this affirmation in the comments. I am unpredictably powerful. Number 5. The wolf versus dog metaphor. Picture this. Two animals, same genetics, same capabilities, same intelligence, but completely different destinies. The dog and the wolf. Look at the dog, loyal, friendly, emotional, always excited, always available, always seeking validation from its master. It barks at everything, reacts to everything, shows every emotion openly. The dog is loved. The dog is fed. The dog is comfortable, but the dog is owned, controlled, living at someone else's mercy, existing on someone else's terms, its entire life dictated by external approval. The dog has security, but it has no power, no freedom, no respect beyond what its master decides to give it. Now look at the wolf, silent, observant, controlled, emotionally unreadable. It doesn't bark, doesn't seek approval, doesn't react to every stimulus. It watches, waits, calculates, and when it acts decisively. The wolf isn't loved. Maybe it's not even liked, but it's feared, it's respected. It moves through the world on its own terms. Nobody owns a wolf. Nobody controls a wolf. Nobody takes a wolf for granted. The wolf has no security, but it has power, freedom, respect that's earned through presence alone. Which one are you? Be honest with yourself. Are you the dog, eager to please everyone around you, emotionally available, reacting to every provocation, barking at every perceived threat, seeking validation constantly, showing all your feelings, being completely transparent and therefore completely controllable? If so, you know how that ends. You get fed when convenient. You get attention when someone needs to give it. You get respect only when someone decides you've earned it. Your entire existence depends on how others treat you. That's not power. That's dependence. That's weakness disguised as loyalty. Or are you ready to become the wolf? Ready to go silent? Ready to stop seeking approval? Ready to control your emotions instead of broadcasting them? Ready to observe instead of react? Ready to be misunderstood and unbothered by it? The wolf doesn't explain itself, doesn't defend itself, doesn't seek to be liked. It simply exists as a force. And because it exists as a force, it's treated like one, with caution, with respect, with healthy fear. This is the choice in front of you right now. Stay the dog and keep getting the results you've been getting. Keep being taken for granted. Keep being controlled through emotional manipulation. Keep living for external validation. Or become the wolf and step into a completely different existence where you're not liked by everyone, but you're respected by everyone, where you're not understood, but you're never taken lightly, where you're not emotionally available, but you're psychologically dominant. Machiavelli once said, "It is better to be feared than loved if you cannot be both." The dog is loved. Everyone likes the dog. The dog is friendly, warm, available, but the dog has no power. It's walked on a leash. It eats when told. It exists at someone else's pleasure. The wolf is feared, maybe not loved, maybe not even liked, but respected, given space, treated with caution. And in that respect, in that caution, the wolf finds freedom. So which one are you choosing? Because you can't be both. You can't be the friendly dog that everyone loves and the powerful wolf that everyone respects. The energies are incompatible. You have to choose. Likability or respect, comfort or power, being understood or being untouchable. And if you choose the wolf, understand what you're signing up for. You're giving up emotional transparency. You're giving up being understood. You're giving up warm, comfortable interactions with most people. But you're gaining something far more valuable. You're gaining psychological dominance. You're gaining respect that doesn't depend on how nice you are. You're gaining the ability to move through this world as a force, not a victim. The wolf doesn't need a pack of hundreds. It has a small, tight circle. People it trusts, people it protects, people who've earned access to its real self. But to everyone else, the wolf is exactly that. A wolf, silent, observing, controlled, unreadable, dangerous if provoked, but otherwise just existing in its power. That's what you're becoming. Not cruel, not mean, not aggressive, just controlled, just powerful, just untouchable. You're giving up the need to be liked. You're giving up the need to be understood. You're giving up the comfort of being emotionally available to everyone. And you're gaining everything that matters: respect, power, freedom, the ability to move through life on your terms, not someone else's. Stop being the dog. Stop barking at everything. Stop reacting emotionally. Stop seeking approval from every person you encounter. Stop being so available, so predictable, so controllable. Become the wolf. Go silent. Start observing. Start controlling your reactions. Start being selective about who gets access to your real self. Start being mysterious. Start being powerful. The wolf doesn't announce its presence. You just feel it when a wolf enters the space. The energy shifts. People become alert. Not because the wolf threatens anyone, but because the wolf is controlled, powerful, and completely unreadable. That's the energy you need. That's the presence you need. That's the power you need. Stop being domesticated. Stop being tamed. Stop being controllable. Become wild again. Become dangerous again. Not dangerous in action, but dangerous in potential. Dangerous in mystery. Dangerous in the sense that people never quite know what you're capable of. That's the wolf. That's what you're becoming. That's who you need to be. I want you to drop this affirmation in the comments. I move like a wolf. Number 6. Fear balanced with respect. The part most people get completely wrong. They think power is about being feared, so they become cold, harsh, distant, intimidating, and they think that makes them powerful. It doesn't. It makes them unstable. Because fear alone is not power. Fear alone creates resentment, rebellion, enemies waiting for you to show weakness so they can strike, or they go the opposite direction. They think power is about being respected for their character, their values, their integrity. So they become good people, honest people, fair people, and they wonder why they keep getting used. Because respect alone is not protection. Respect alone creates entitlement. People respect your qualities, but they don't respect your boundaries because there's no consequence for crossing them. Both extremes are weak positions, and if you only understand one side, you'll never have real power. True Machiavellian power lies in the balance, in creating a dynamic where people genuinely respect who you are while simultaneously fearing what you might do if they cross you. That balance is everything. That's where untouchable power lives. Let me break this down. When people only fear you, when you rule through intimidation and threat, what happens underneath the surface? They comply when you're watching. They do what you want when you're present, but they resent you. They plot against you. They wait for the moment you're vulnerable. And the second you show weakness, Everyone you've intimidated turns on you because they never respected you. They only feared consequences, and fear-based power is inherently unstable. It only lasts as long as you can maintain the threat. Now look at the opposite. When people only respect you, when they admire your character but don't fear any consequences, what happens? They take advantage. They push boundaries. They start treating you like a resource. They respect your skills, your knowledge, your value, but they don't respect your time, your energy, your standards. Because what are you going to do? You're too good, too understanding, too forgiving. Respect without fear breeds entitlement. People feel safe disrespecting you because there's no danger in it. Both positions are powerless, but when you combine fear and respect, when people genuinely value who you are while also being genuinely afraid of losing access to you, that's untouchable power. Machiavelli once said, "Since love and fear can hardly exist together, if we must choose between them, it is far safer to be feared than loved." But notice he says, if we must choose. The ideal, both. The ideal is that people respect your character, your strength, your value, while also fearing the consequences of disrespecting you. Not because you threaten them, but because you've demonstrated through consistent action that you're someone who doesn't tolerate disrespect. Someone who cuts people off without hesitation. Someone who withdraws permanently when lines are crossed. That fear is healthy. It's protective. It's what keeps people honest in their interactions with you. So how do you build this balance? First, you build respect through competence. Through being someone of genuine value. You develop skills. You show integrity in what matters. You demonstrate that knowing you, having you in someone's life, is actually valuable. That's the foundation. People need to see that losing you would be a loss, that you're not replaceable, that you offer something they can't easily find elsewhere. But then you add the second element, consequences, boundaries with teeth, the fear element. And you do this not through threats, but through action, through consistency, through actually following through when people cross lines. Someone disrespects you. You don't argue. You don't explain. You don't give second chances. You just remove yourself. Immediately, completely, permanently, if necessary. No drama, no emotion, no explanation. You just disappear from their life. And you do it so calmly, so decisively, that they realize this is not negotiable. This is not something they can talk their way out of. This is final. Do this consistently enough, and people learn. They learn that you're not someone who tolerates disrespect. They learn that crossing you has real consequences. They learn to fear losing access to you. That's healthy fear. That's protective fear. That's fear that makes people treat you right, not because they're scared of you, but because they're scared of losing you. And when you combine that fear with the respect you've already built through your character and competence, you create something powerful. You create a dynamic where people value you and are careful with you, where they appreciate having you in their life and they're cautious not to mess it up, where they respect your boundaries because they know you'll enforce them, where they treat you well, not just because they want to, but because they know they should. That's the balance. That's true power. That's what makes you untouchable. You're not just feared like a tyrant. You're not just respected like a pushover. You're both. You're someone people genuinely want in their life, but are genuinely afraid of losing. And that combination makes you irreplaceable. It makes you someone people move carefully around. Someone people never take for granted. Someone people respect, not because they're told to, but because it's the only logical response to who you are. But here's the key. This only works if you're willing to actually walk away. You have to mean it. power collapses the moment people sense you're bluffing. If you talk about boundaries but never enforce them, you teach people one thing: your words are empty. Machiavellian power is not loud. It is consistent. It's not emotional. It's decisive. The moment someone crosses a line and you hesitate, explain, negotiate, or forgive too quickly, you destroy the balance. Respect fades, fear evaporates, and entitlement takes its place. So, understand this clearly. The balance is maintained through restraint, not reaction. You don't punish people. You don't threaten people. You don't lecture people. You simply remove access. And removal is the most powerful message you can send. Because when someone loses access to you, your time, your presence, your validation, they feel it immediately. The silence is louder than any argument. The absence hits harder than any insult. They replay the moment. They question themselves. They wonder what they missed. They wonder if they'll ever get that access back. And that's when the balance locks in. They respect you because you are valuable. They fear you because you are willing to disappear. That combination makes you untouchable. Not everyone will like you. Not everyone will stay. But everyone will know one thing: crossing you has consequences. And once people understand that, they stop testing you. They stop pushing boundaries. They stop playing games. They adjust. That's real power. Not dominance, not aggression, but self-respect enforced without emotion. This entire video was never about becoming cold. It was never about being cruel. It was never about manipulating people for ego. It was about ending the era where people felt safe disrespecting you. You were taught to explain, to forgive endlessly, to be emotionally available to everyone, to prove your worth through patience and kindness. And all that did was train people to take you lightly. That version of you is done. From now on, you move differently. You speak less. You react slower. You reveal nothing that isn't earned. You don't chase understanding. You don't beg for respect. You let silence do the work. You let absence teach the lesson. You let consequences speak. You become someone whose presence has weight. Someone whose silence creates tension. Someone whose withdrawal changes the atmosphere, not because you demand respect, but because you no longer tolerate disrespect. Remember this: the loud are noticed, the emotional are used, the predictable are controlled, but the unreadable, they are feared, they are respected, they are remembered. Machiavelli didn't rule through force. He ruled through perception, and now so will you. Say nothing, reveal nothing, command fear, command respect, and never explain why. If this hit you, subscribe, and remember, silence isn't weakness, silence is power.